Hello, hello, and welcome. This is Garden Gazette issue number 9. We're talking about roots and spirit. My name is Iworiosa, and my temple is Moon Garden Temple. I'm an initiated spiritual guide and oracle and love attraction coach. Today, we're talking about silence as a boundary. Well, more like silence supporting your boundaries. I know a lot of you out there are givers and generous and holding the community and connectors and holding relationships. And if you're like me, a recovering people pleaser, you might have some challenges with your boundaries. And I'm here to ask you to keep going with that, because the better you are with your boundaries, the better you're going to feel inside, the more in touch with your own intuition that you're going to be. And when it comes to prayer and manifestation and creating the world around you, boundaries, it's like you're creating your own temple, your kingdom, your queendom. So those boundaries are going to be very, very important, because not everybody in this world is going to respect or nourish. Not every environment in this world is going to be aligned with what it is that you're creating. So the boundaries are absolutely essential in supporting whatever it is that you're creating. So today, I want to share from a very personal account, and it's something that I learned quite a while back, and it's something that I now share with all of my clients in my classes and sharing it with you here today, and that is the use of silence supporting my boundaries. Now, when I started on my sort of boundary journey, I mean, I think I grew up with some of the normal boundaries, don't touch my body, for example. Like there's some obvious ones that were obvious for me. As I grew up, I am tired, so I'm not going to go to this party. I'm just going to sleep, right? But as I got older and my environments changed, my boundaries, especially the ones around energetic connection and reciprocation, I started realizing that I needed more boundaries around how much I was giving. And I also needed to learn about about boundaries around how much I was allowing to come into my life that was actually cutting me down, that was actually taking from me, right? Ideally, I'd like nothing to be taking from me or cutting me down, but I had to learn to like put those walls up. I had to learn to say no. I had to learn how to do that. So one of the things that I found as I started getting strong and creating the boundaries was that it was getting easy to create the boundaries with people who I found to be manipulative, that I didn't like, that I didn't have a lot of respect for the way they were moving. But it was difficult to create the boundaries with the people that I love. It was difficult to create the boundaries with my intimate partner. It was difficult to create the boundaries with, a coworker that I love. And also, like, I work with children. Sometimes it's difficult to create boundaries with children because they're so cute. They don't even know, they don't even know that they're doing something that's not okay sometimes. So I found myself, when I was creating boundaries that were necessary for me and totally reasonable and balanced, I found that even though I knew they were good for me, this sense of guilt, this sense of, oh, it feels like this is mean, even though it wasn't. I feel like I'm being mean because I wasn't used to doing it, right? I was used to just giving more, holding more space, allowing a person to do the thing that's not working for me. Like I just felt like I was valuing myself and what I needed and what was important for me lower than what that person seemed to have needed, or what the space that person was taking up. And when that happens, my friends, I cut off not cut off, but I'm less aware of what is going on inside my spirit. I'm less connected. I feel less connected to that desire expressing itself. We need freedom in order to manifest, in order to get our prayers answered, in order to live our potential. We need freedom. And part of that freedom comes from spirit expressing. When I shut that down and I let other people take up the space and I'm taking on more than I can handle, I don't have the boundaries, then that gets muddy and murky and more difficult to reconnect and to also follow, right? Then I don't have the bandwidth to actually follow my desire. It takes bandwidth, and it takes energetic power, and it takes your energy in order to manifest what it is that you want and to live your life the way that you want. That's why we have these boundaries, right? So that you can protect this temple. You can protect this space. You can protect this altar that's the human being having this experience, right? So I found that in this place of making boundaries with people I love and that I have intimacy with was difficult. And this is the story that I want to share with you of where silence was so very helpful to me, and now I use it often. I had a friend who very reasonably asked me to be part of an event. And he was like, you got to be part of this. I can't imagine this happening without you. It's just like, it's you are the puzzle piece, right? And at that time I was doing lots of events, and he had done a few favors for me and I'd done favors. It was totally reasonable for him to ask me about helping, right? And so in my mind, I was like, ooh, I really want to. But the day and time you're asking is absolutely unavailable. There's things I have, they are unchangeable. If they were I didn't tell him all this. I just said, if they, I just knew for myself, like if they were changeable, I would, but they're not. So I said, I really want to do this. Thank you. The only time I have available is the second day of your event in this big chunk of time. And he came back and he's like, no, you don't understand. Like this thing that's happening on the Saturday is like, it's kind of built around you, right? Like you got to have it. And so then because he's my friend and we have rapport, I don't particularly like to explain myself when I have let somebody know very clearly like what is going to work for me and what's not. However, this is a friend this is a rapport in which if I don't mind providing some understanding. That's the way to put it. I don't mind providing some understanding of what's going on for me. So I let him know, like, hey, like, I understand, I'm so flattered, but I have things that are unmovable. I did take a look at it, and there's just no way it's going to happen. The only time, and I repeated it, the only time that I have available is Sunday between these two chunks of time. That's it for me. And he came back, and he was like, oh, please. He just like the begging is like, this is, and then it went into like, I've done stuff for you before and moved stuff around. Like, I'm just asking if you could just try all this stuff. And when he was saying all that stuff, right? Maybe some of it was a little inappropriate. Like, I've done stuff for you, so you should do stuff for me. Maybe it's a little inappropriate. I don't find this person to be manipulative or whatever. Sometimes we do this to each other. It's not the most favorable habits. It's not the most favorable behavior, right? But, I can let that slide a little bit. And I understood the flattery, like you really wanted me to be part of this in this particular way. And I couldn't do it. But as he's saying all this to me, please, 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 and all that, in me was this, like, the guilt came and the, like, I started to feel like I needed to get involved in the conversation, explain more. And then I found that, like, as in my brain, as I was explaining to myself, I was like, this sounds like excuses rather than I just made a clear boundary, like, respect it, right? I was going through the excuses and I could hear myself inside talking myself into changing, like, disrupting that Saturday, that day, disrupting all the things I had planned that were unmovable so I could please this person because of the begging and because of what they needed most. I was about to value what he needed most, my friend, over what I needed most, right? And that I felt it was all going on at once. Emotions plus the guilt and like the layers of emotions, and everything in me wanted to acquiesce. Everything in me wanted to please him, to give more, to hold more space, to devalue like what I needed, right? And so what I did was I knew if I engaged with this person that I love, that all that stuff would start coming out of my mouth and that I would put myself in this situation. So what I did was I just stayed silent. I just stayed silent and I just breathed and I gave myself the space to allow all that emotion to come up, for me to reflect in it, for me to process in whatever I needed to process. And not only did it give me time to process it, it gave him time to process it. He's used to me always saying yes. He's used to this, the energy of him asking me saying yes and me asking and him saying it. He's used to that energy, right? I could totally understand that he would think, like, as he's preparing this thing, of course she's going to say yes. As he's making the plan, of course, why wouldn't she? Right? I understand that I've done that myself before and found that, maybe I was wrong. I understand that there's a established rapport and established vibrational energy between us. And in that moment, when he wasn't getting what is expected back from me, it takes a minute. People need time to catch up. So as I was silent, he had that time after he went through like, I did this for you, you should do this for me. Like, I have to, the only person who can do it is you. After he went through all of that, he just took a minute and he was like, okay, let me see. And then luckily, because he's my friend, I trust him, I love him, he was able to go, okay, let me see what I can do. And we ended up working it out. I ended up doing the thing on the Sunday. This is the thing that was so difficult for me with my friends. I had great boundaries with people I don't like and people who I can see you, that evil. I had that great boundaries with those people, but not with the people I loved. And so this silence allowed me to go through the process within myself instead of continuing on in our friendly rapport until I became the giver that I always am and just let them have what they needed and devalued myself. I use this now anytime I'm in a conversation where I know I can't give. Instead of getting involved, I go into myself and I give myself that time and that energy, and then that time and energy to catch up. It's actually a more respectful way to support that boundary than me kind of like wishy-washy going back and forth. The other thing that I also notice in sort of using this silence as a boundary is it really tells me more about the person who's there, right? Like in that situation, my friend, like he had a little problem with it and he was like, no, I get it. It's a boundary. Fine. We moved on. Right. But I also have used this, and you will find this too when you start using silence. I also found that with some people in my life, like our relationship was contingent upon them getting what they wanted from me whenever they wanted it, because I was just constantly giving and devaluing myself. And the minute that I was like, no, the boundary's here and it doesn't work, like they threw judgments and punishment and were mad that I couldn't give more. And then it told me so much more about how they see our relationship. And it was easier for me to make the decisions about, is this somebody I really want in my life that only wants me around because I give to them? Like, is that, and they're mad when I don't? Like, I was able to make better decisions and sort of sift through my acquaintances and my collaborations and my friendships a little bit better. So, and the other thing I want to share is that it will get easier every time you do it. It will get to that point where you don't feel that guilt with your loved ones, where you don't feel that guilt with the boundaries. You don't feel that like, oh, I need to explain myself and all that. It'll just be like a beautiful, like, boop, like, I can't do that for you now, but maybe some other time. Or yeah, this doesn't work for me. And that's it. And you'll still be in that place of just your flow, your joy, your contentment, wherever you are. It'll just be a little blip in the interactions you're having with people. So I hope that was helpful to you. Thank you for listening to the Garden Gazette and subscribing to my list and watching these videos. I'm sending love out to all of you. Be blessed. My name is Iworiosa, and please let me know in the comments, do you like these videos? And what do you want to hear from the Garden Gazette? Some weeks I talk about love and relationships. Other weeks I talk about roots and spirit. And it's my pleasure to share all of this with you. So blessings. Mwah, 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 mwah. See you later.